The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, 'You shall not murder,' and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you, the one who is angry with his brother or sister will be liable to judgment. And whoever insults their brother or sister will be liable to the council. And whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Again, you have heard it said, 'In ancient times you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord.' But I say to you, do not swear at all. Let your yes be yes, let your no be no, and anything more than this comes from evil." The Gospel of the Lord.
Today's first reading from the book of Sirach, has an expression that we're maybe not that familiar with. The Lord has placed before you fire and water. Stretch out your hand for whichever you choose. When I look at that, I think, so which is supposed to be good and which is supposed to be bad? Fire can cause a lot of damage, but it can also bring warmth. It can prepare food. Water can bring life, but it can also bring great destruction. When we look further down, before each person are life and death, good and evil. I'd be tempted to say, well, then fire must be the good thing, and water must be the bad thing. At the end of the day, we're not exactly certain what the full sense of that expression was. It was obviously an expression in the deserts of Judea, then translated in the deserts and along the Nile River in Egypt, and eventually spread all around the Mediterranean basin. But whether we can decide which is the good and which is the bad, the point of it is clear. The book of Sirach is reminding its readers that we all have choices to make in life. And they are important choices, life and death, good and evil, and whichever is whichever, fire and water. In our gospel, we encounter Jesus giving some very concrete advice about making such choices. Again, we have to picture this is the Sermon on the Mount, or as Luke would tell us, the Sermon on the Plain. In either case, it doesn't really matter whether it's up the hill or at the bottom of the hill, but we can picture large groups of people sitting down on the ground, listening to Jesus speak. And he's speaking quite concretely for them. Don't think that I've come to wipe away the law and the prophets. I've come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. You've got to be more righteous than the scribes and the Pharisees. They were the professional preachers of the law and guardians of the law. And Jesus calls for more than them. And we know that Jesus often had tension with the scribes and the Pharisees. Many of them were very good people, but some of them were also hypocrites. And that seems to be what most galled Jesus about the scribes and the Pharisees. And so he refers in several instances to passages from the law. You have heard, it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not murder. That's part of the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments of Moses. And whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I ask more of you. Whoever is angry with their brother or sister will be liable to judgment. And then he goes on with the typical Semitic exaggeration, seems excessive, but is meant to make a point. Whoever insults their brother or sister shall be liable to the council. And whoever says, you fool, shall be liable to the hell of fire. And then even more concrete. If you're offering your gift at the altar, and you remember that your brother or your sister has something against you, then leave the gift. Go and be reconciled with your brother or sister, and then come back and offer the gift at the altar. Then Jesus quotes from another one of the commandments of the Decalogue. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, anyone who looks at a woman with lust already has committed adultery with her in his heart. And then a third time, referring not to the Decalogue, but to something out of the broader law of Moses. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord. And then Jesus gives such practical and down-to-earth advice. I say to you, do not swear at all. Let your word be yes, if you mean yes, or no, if you mean no. And anything more than this comes from the evil one.